She refused the Duke's Christmas invitation until he appeared and a blizzard trapped them alone for days. Before we begin this beautiful period romance story, tell me in the comments where you're listening from. I love knowing where you're joining us from. And subscribe if you love romantic stories like this. Now, let's fall into this tale together. The invitation arrived on a grey December morning, carried by a footman whose livery bore the Thornbury crest in silver thread. Eleanor Ashford stood at the window of Thornfield Manor's modest drawing-room, watching snow clouds gather over the Yorkshire moors, when Betty announced the visitor, a messenger from Thornbury Castle, Miss Amelia. Amelia's hand stilled on the curtain. She had not heard that name spoken aloud in her home for 9 years. The envelope was cream vellum, heavy and expensive. The seal, pressed into deep blue wax, showed the hawk and oak that had marked the Thornbury family for 3 centuries. Amelia's fingers trembled as she broke it open. The Duke of Thornbury requests the honour of Miss Amelia Wells's presence at the winter ball to be held at Thornbury Castle on Christmas Eve. Your attendance would be especially welcomed. Especially welcomed. Those words burned like brands. Amelia. Her father emerged from his study, still wearing his reading spectacles. Edmund Wells had aged considerably in the past decade, his hair now completely silver, his shoulders slightly stooped, but his eyes were still sharp as he noted his daughter's expression. "What is it?" She handed him the invitation without a word. Edmund read it slowly, then sighed. "It has been 9 years, my dear. 9 years is not long enough. Amelia, I will not go." She spoke with the flat finality that her father had learned not to argue against. "Please send our regrets. The Duke has never invited us before. This is significant. The Duke has many reasons to avoid our family, as we have to avoid his." Amelia took the invitation back, her jaw tight. "I will not set foot in Thornbury Castle. Not for a ball. Not for Christmas, not ever." Edmund watched his daughter move to the small escritoire by the window. Amelia had inherited her mother's delicate features and dark hair, but her grey eyes were all her own, intelligent, guarded, and currently burning with an old anger that time had failed to diminish. "Eleanor would not have wanted this," he said softly. Amelia's hand froze on the paper. "Do not speak of her. She was your dearest friend. She would not want you to—" "She is dead," Amelia's voice cracked slightly. "She died because her brother valued duty over her life. That is what the Duke of Thornbury does. Father, he chooses duty. He chose it then, and he will choose it now as he prepares to marry Lady Genevieve and produce his heir. I want no part of it." She wrote the refusal with quick, angry strokes. "Miss Amelia Wells thanks the Duke of Thornbury for his kind invitation, but must respectfully decline. No explanation, no softening pleasantries, just refusal, cold and clear. Send this," she told Betty, handing over the sealed note. When the footman had departed, Amelia returned to the window. Thornbury Castle lay 8 miles to the north, hidden beyond the rolling hills. She had not seen its towers in 9 years, had not spoken to its master in all that time, Christopher Thornbury. Once, she had known him as simply Christopher, the older brother of her best friend, the young man who taught them piano in the summer evenings, who looked at her with warm brown eyes and never saw what she felt. Now he was the Duke, powerful, remote, untouchable, and about to marry. Amelia pressed her forehead against the cold glass. She should feel nothing, should have moved past this years ago. But the invitation had torn open something she thought she had buried with Eleanor. The memory came unbidden, Eleanor's hand in hers, growing cold, blood on white sheets, the stillborn baby boy who had killed her, and Christopher arriving too late, his face shattered, reaching for Amelia as if she could somehow forgive what could never be forgiven. She had said terrible things that day, true things, and then she had walked away and never looked back. "Let him marry his Lady Genevieve," Amelia whispered to the empty room. "Let him have his ball and his duty and his loveless life. I want none of it." But her chest ached with something that felt dangerously like grief. The second letter arrived 5 days later. This one bore no formal seal, no footman's delivery. It came by regular post, the handwriting achingly familiar despite the years. "Amelia, I know I have no right to ask anything of you. I know my presence is unwanted, but I must speak with you, just once, about Eleanor, about the past, about what I should have done and failed to do. Please come to the ball. If afterward you still wish me gone from your life forever, I will respect that wish. But give me this one chance to say what I should have said 9 years ago. Christopher not Thornbury, not His Grace. Just Christopher, as he had once been to her. Amelia read the letter 3 times, her hands shaking. Then she crossed to the fireplace and held it to the flames. The paper caught, curled, blackened, but the words remained burned into her memory. About Eleanor, her friend's name, written in his hand after all these years of silence. "Damn you," Amelia whispered to the ashes. "Damn you, Christopher Thornbury." But that night, she dreamed of summer evenings at the castle, of Eleanor's laugh echoing through the music room, of Christopher's hands guiding hers on the piano keys while his sister teased them both. She woke with tears on her cheeks and a hollowness in her chest that felt like hunger. December had turned bitter. The moors lay frozen under a pale sky, and villagers spoke in hushed tones of the great storm they could feel building in the north. Amelia paid little attention to the weather. She moved through her days with practiced efficiency, managing the household, visiting the sick in the village, playing piano when her father was out so he would not hear and ask questions. She had not touched the piano in company for 9 years. Music had died with Eleanor. On the 8th of December, Amelia walked to the village to purchase ribbon for the Christmas wreaths. Thornfield Manor might be isolated, but they still observed the traditions. Her mother had loved Christmas. Her father deserved whatever small joys she could provide. The shop was warm and crowded. Mrs. Brennan, the vicar's wife, smiled at Amelia's approach. "Miss Wells, how lovely to see you. Are you excited for the festivities?" "Festivities? Why, the Duke's winter ball, of course. The whole county is abuzz. They say Lady Genevieve Rothmore has already arrived at the castle. The announcement will be made Christmas Eve. An engagement at last. The Duke has been a bachelor far too long." Something cold settled in Amelia's stomach. "I see. You'll be attending, surely. Your father received an invitation, I heard." "We declined." Mrs. Brennan's eyes widened with poorly concealed curiosity. "Declined? But my dear, this is the social event of the season. The Duke specifically requested—" "My father's health is poor," Amelia lied smoothly. "The journey would tax him." It was not entirely false. Edmund Wells suffered from gout and tired easily, but they both knew the real reason had nothing to do with his health. Mrs. Brennan leaned closer, her voice dropping. "They say the Duke has been quite out of sorts since his sister's death. Poor Lady Eleanor. Such a tragedy. She was your friend, was she not?" "She was. Terrible thing, to die so young. And in childbirth, the Lord works in mysterious ways." Mrs. Brennan shook her head. "But now His Grace must think of the succession. Lady Genevieve is a sensible choice. Good bloodlines, substantial dowry. Not a love match, perhaps, but then dukes cannot afford to marry for love." "No," Amelia thought bitterly. "They cannot." She purchased her ribbon and fled the shop, Mrs. Brennan's chatter following her like persistent flies. The sky had darkened during her brief errand. Fat snowflakes drifted down, catching in her hair and on her cloak. Amelia pulled the wool tighter and started the mile walk back to Thornfield. She was halfway home when she heard hoofbeats behind her. A single rider, moving fast despite the snow. Amelia stepped to the side of the road, not looking up, expecting the horse to pass. It did not. The rider pulled up beside her, the horse's breath steaming in the cold air. Miss Wells. That voice, deep, familiar, and edged with something that might have been desperation. Amelia's heart stopped. Slowly, she raised her eyes to meet those of Christopher Thornbury, Duke of Thornbury, who sat astride a magnificent black stallion and looked at her as if she were water in a desert. For a long moment, neither spoke. Snow fell between them, soft and relentless. Christopher looked older. The boyish softness had been carved away by time and grief, leaving sharp cheekbones and a mouth bracketed by tension. His dark hair showed threads of silver at the temples, but his eyes, those warm brown eyes, were unchanged, and they held hers with an intensity that made her breath catch. "Your Grace," Amelia managed, her voice steady despite the thundering of her heart. "You are far from home. I came to find you. I am walking home. As you can see, I am quite capable of managing alone." "Amelia." "Miss Wells," she corrected sharply. Pain flickered across his face. "Miss Wells, please. I need to speak with you. You sent a letter. I did not respond. That should have been answer enough." "I know." Christopher dismounted in one fluid motion, standing now on the road beside her. He was taller than she remembered, broader through the shoulders, a man fully grown, no longer the youth who had taught her Chopin. "But I cannot accept that answer. Not without trying once more. You have no right." "I know I have no right." The words burst from him with sudden force. I know what I did, what I failed to do. I know Eleanor died hating me, and I know you hate me still. I know I deserve that hatred, but, Amelia," his voice broke slightly, "I cannot marry Genevieve with this between us. I cannot move forward without at least trying to make you understand." "Understand what?" "That you chose duty over your sister's life, that you let your father force her into a marriage that killed her. I understand perfectly, Your Grace." "You do not." He stepped closer, heedless of propriety, of the snow falling harder now. "You do not understand what it was like. William had just died. My father he was not himself. The grief broke something in him. He became obsessed with the succession, with securing the line. And I was 22 years old, suddenly a duke, with responsibilities I did not know how to carry." "Eleanor was 19, Amelia said quietly, "and she was terrified. She begged you to help her. I was there, Christopher. I heard her. I know. She loved you, she trusted you, and you sent her to that monster anyway." Christopher's eyes closed briefly. "I thought I could protect her. I thought if I negotiated the marriage settlement carefully, ensured she had her own income, her own household, I thought I could make it bearable. She died in agony after 36 hours of labor. Her baby was born dead. Tell me how your careful negotiations protected her from that." The words were cruel, deliberately so. Amelia wanted to hurt him as she had been hurt, as Eleanor had been hurt. Christopher took it without flinching. "They did not. I failed her. I failed you both, and I have lived with that knowledge every day for 9 years. Snow was falling thickly now, obscuring the landscape around them. Amelia's cloak was growing heavy with moisture. The temperature had dropped sharply. "This storm," Christopher said, glancing at the sky. "It will be bad. You should not walk alone. I have walked this road 1,000 times. Not in a blizzard. Please, let me take you home." Pride warred with practicality. The snow was indeed intensifying, the wind beginning to howl across the open moor. Thornfield was still half a mile distant. "Fine," Amelia said shortly, "but then you leave. Immediately." "Agreed." Christopher helped her mount, his hands careful, impersonal, and swung up behind her. The stallion started forward at a walk, picking its way through the deepening snow. Amelia tried to hold herself stiffly, to avoid touching more of Christopher than necessary, but the horse's gait forced her back against his chest, and she felt his warmth through the layers of wool and velvet, felt his breath stirring her hair. Once she had dreamed of this, of being close to him, held by him, but that girl had died with Eleanor, and the woman she had become wanted no part of such foolish fantasies. "I heard you stopped playing," Christopher said quietly, his voice near her ear. "You heard correctly. Eleanor loved your playing. She always said you were the talented one. Do not speak of her to me." "Why not? She was my sister. I loved her." "Not enough." The words came out harder than Amelia intended. "You did not love her enough." Christopher said nothing, but his arms tightened fractionally around her, and Amelia felt him tremble. They reached Thornfield just as the storm truly broke. What had been steady snowfall became a blinding wall of white. The wind shrieked around them, tearing at their clothes. "Get inside!" Christopher shouted over the wind, "and quickly!" He half carried her to the door. Betty opened it immediately, eyes wide at the sight of them. "Miss Amelia, Your Grace, Lord, what a storm!" They stumbled into the entrance hall. Christopher turned back toward the door. "I must get to Thornbury before—" A tremendous gust of wind slammed the door shut. Through the window beside it, the world had disappeared entirely, replaced by swirling white chaos. Edmund Wells appeared from the study, leaning on his walking stick. "Your Grace, you cannot possibly ride in this. The road will be impassable within minutes. I have to try." "You will die trying," Edmund said flatly. "And your horse with you?" "No, sir. You will stay here until the storm passes." Christopher looked at Amelia, and she saw the realization dawn in his eyes. They both knew what Yorkshire storms could be like. This one looked to be particularly vicious. They were trapped, together, in the house where Eleanor had spent so many happy summers before everything went wrong. "The guest room," Amelia heard herself say, her voice hollow. "Betty, prepare the guest room." "Yes, miss." Christopher pulled off his snow-covered coat, handed it to Betty. Beneath, his shirt and waistcoat were fine, expensive, the clothes of a duke, but his eyes, when they met Amelia's again, held nothing of ducal pride, only exhaustion and something that looked like resignation. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for not leaving me to freeze. I am not my father, Amelia replied. I do not punish people to death for mistakes. Even as she said it, she knew it was a lie. She had been punishing Christopher for 9 years, and herself along with him. The storm raged through the night and into the next day. By morning, snow had buried the ground floor windows in drifts, and the wind still howled like something alive and angry. Amelia stood in the kitchen, watching Betty prepare breakfast. Her father had not yet risen. His gout troubled him more in cold weather, and he tended to sleep late, which meant she would be alone with Christopher. The thought sent conflicting emotions warring through her chest. Anger, yes, that had not faded, but beneath it, something else. Something that felt dangerously like the girl she had been at 17, watching Christopher play piano and dreaming impossible dreams. She crushed that feeling ruthlessly. Where is his Grace? She asked Betty. In the library, Miss and he rose early, asked if he might look at the books. Of course, Christopher had always been a reader. She remembered Eleanor teasing him about preferring books to balls, scholarship to society. Amelia found him standing before the east-facing window, though nothing was visible beyond except white. He had changed into one of her father's spare shirts, slightly too small across the shoulders, and looked oddly vulnerable without his ducal finery. "Good morning," he said without turning. "Your father's collection is impressive. I had forgotten. You visited often enough. Before." "Before." Christopher turned to face her. "We must speak of it, Amelia. We cannot dance around it forever. We are not dancing. We are surviving a storm. When it ends, you will leave, and we need never see each other again. Is that truly what you want?" "Yes." The word came out too quickly, too sharp. They both knew it for the lie it was. Christopher crossed the room slowly, as if approaching a skittish horse. "I do not believe you. Believe what you wish, it changes nothing. You loved Eleanor. I loved her. That should unite us, not divide us. She died." The words burst from Amelia with sudden violence. "She died screaming for you, Christopher. She died with her hands in mine, bleeding out because some old man wanted an heir. And where were you? In London, attending Parliament, choosing duty, as always. I came as soon as I received word. Too late. You arrived too late. And do you know what her last words were?" Amelia's voice had gone quiet now, deadly. She said, "Tell Christopher he was right. I should have fought harder." She died thinking it was her fault, her failure when it was yours. Christopher's face had gone white. No, she could not have. She did, those exact words. And I have carried them for 9 years, wondering if I should have told you then, if you deserved to know. But I was too angry, too broken, so I let you wonder. Silence fell between them, heavy as snow. "Thank you," Christopher said finally, his voice rough. Amelia blinked. "What? For telling me now? For giving me her last words?" His eyes were bright with unshed tears. "I have wondered, imagined, the worst possibilities. At least now I know. That she blamed herself. That is what you wanted to know. That she forgave me." Christopher's voice broke. "In her way, by telling me I was right, that she should have fought. She absolved me of forcing her. She took the choice back onto herself. It is more grace than I deserve." Amelia stared at him, understanding slowly dawning. She had carried Eleanor's words as an accusation, but Christopher heard them as forgiveness. Perhaps they were both. "I miss her," Amelia whispered. "Every day, every hour." "So do I." And suddenly the anger drained out of her, leaving only grief, grief that had nowhere to go, no outlet, because the person she would have shared it with was gone. Christopher seemed to sense her crumbling. He took another step forward, then stopped, as if unsure whether he was allowed closer. "May I?" he asked, gesturing vaguely. Amelia did not trust her voice. She nodded. Christopher closed the distance and pulled her into his arms. She should have pushed him away, should have maintained her anger, her pride, but she was so tired, tired of being strong alone, tired of carrying grief with no one to share its weight. So she let him hold her, let herself collapse against his chest and finally cry. Christopher said nothing, just held her steady, one hand cradling the back of her head, the other firm around her shoulders. His own tears fell silent into her hair. They stood that way for a long time, mourning together the girl they had both loved and failed. The storm did not relent. By afternoon of the second day, it was clear they would be trapped together for some time. The snow had piled so high against the north side of the house that the door was completely blocked. The temperature had dropped further, turning the world into a frozen wasteland. Edmund Wells took the situation with surprising grace. "We have food enough for a week," he announced over a simple dinner of soup and bread. "More if we are careful. The livestock are secure in the barn. All we need is patience." "I am sorry to impose," Christopher said. "My staff will worry. They know Yorkshire weather. They will assume you took shelter somewhere." Edmund studied the Duke with shrewd eyes. "The question is whether you can tolerate being imprisoned with us, Your Grace." "It is not imprisonment, sir. It is unexpected hospitality." "Unexpected, indeed." Edmund's gaze flicked to his daughter, who had been silent throughout the meal. "Perhaps some good will come of it." Amelia said nothing. But later, when her father had retired and she found herself alone with Christopher in the drawing room, she found words rising unbidden. "Why did you truly come to find me?" she asked. "The ball is still 2 weeks away. You could have accepted my refusal and moved on." Christopher stood by the piano, the one piece of furniture in the room draped with cloth. He touched the covering lightly. "May I? I do not play anymore. I remember." He pulled the cloth away anyway, revealing the beautiful rosewood instrument beneath. "This was your mother's, was it not?" "Yes." Christopher sat at the bench and played a single chord. The piano was slightly out of tune but still resonant. "Eleanor used to say you played with more feeling than anyone she knew." "Eleanor said many kind things. She was generous that way. She was honest that way." Christopher played a soft melody, something Amelia recognized as Chopin. "I came to find you because I am about to make the same mistake again." Amelia frowned. "What do you mean?" "Lady Genevieve, the marriage. It is duty, Amelia. Nothing more. I am 32 years old, and the estate needs an heir. My cousins circle like vultures, waiting for me to fail. Parliament whispers about the succession. So I will marry a suitable woman, produce suitable children, and fulfill my suitable duties." His hands stilled on the keys. "Just as I let Eleanor marry a suitable man to fulfill suitable duties, and I needed to see you first, to ask if you thought I was making the right choice. Why would my opinion matter?" Christopher turned to look at her fully. "Because you are the only person left who knew us before William died, before father went mad with grief, before Eleanor," he stopped. "You knew us when we were just Christopher and Eleanor, brother and sister, before duty consumed everything. That was a long time ago. I know, but I cannot escape the feeling that if I marry Genevieve without—" He trailed off, shaking his head. "I do not know what I am trying to say." "You want permission," Amelia said quietly. "You want me to tell you it is acceptable to marry without love. That duty is enough, is it not?" "I do not know." She crossed to stand beside the piano, looking down at his hands on the keys. Those hands that had once guided hers through difficult passages, that had been gentle and patient and careful. "Eleanor thought duty was enough, until it killed her. You are not comforting. You did not come here for comfort. You came here for truth." Christopher laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You always saw through me, even when you were 12 years old, following Eleanor around like a shadow. You always saw through me. Then you know I will not absolve you of this choice. You must make it yourself. And if I choose wrongly, then you will live with the consequences, as we all do." Christopher's hands moved over the keys again, picking out a melody that tugged at Amelia's memory. She recognized it slowly. A piece Eleanor had loved, a waltz. "Do you remember the summer Eleanor turned 16? Christopher asked, still playing. "We held a ball at Thornbury. She insisted you be invited, though father grumbled about country families." "I remember." How could she forget? It had been the most beautiful night of her young life. You wore a blue dress. Your mother had made it specially, and Eleanor made me promise to dance with you. You danced with me because she asked. Not because you wished to. That is not true." Christopher's fingers stumbled on the keys. He stopped playing and turned to face her. "I danced with you because I wanted to, because you looked like something out of a dream, Amelia. And I was 19 and foolish and entirely too aware that you were my sister's best friend, and far too young for me to be thinking such thoughts." Amelia's breath caught. "What? You truly did not know?" Christopher smiled sadly. "I was quite gone on you that summer, but I left for Oxford the next week, and when I returned at Christmas, William was ill. Everything changed so quickly after that. You never said—" "Of course not. You were 16. I was 19, and then William died, and I became the Duke, and there was no room anymore for foolish attractions." He stood from the piano bench. "But I think of that dance sometimes, of how you smiled at me before everything went wrong." Amelia's heart was beating too fast. Why are you telling me this now? Because I am about to marry a woman I do not love, and I wanted you to know that once, long ago, I might have chosen differently, if circumstances had allowed. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with implication. Christopher, forgive me. That was unfair. He moved away from the piano, creating distance. The storm has addled my brain. I should not have spoken. But he had spoken, and now Amelia could not unknow what he had revealed. That summer, that blue dress, that dance. She had thought herself invisible to him, had thought her foolish 17-year-old heart nursed impossible dreams. But he had seen her, had wanted her, and then duty had taken him away, just as duty would take him away again, this time to Lady Genevieve's bed. The storm will end, Amelia said, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside her. You will return to Thornbury. You will marry your suitable bride, and I will remain here exactly as I have been. This conversation changes nothing. Does it not? It cannot. Christopher studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. You are right. Of course. Forgive me. He left the room, his footsteps echoing in the hallway. Amelia stood alone beside the piano, her hands trembling. She wanted to hate him for this new wound, for showing her what might have been, only to take it away again. But instead, she felt only a vast, aching sadness for Christopher, for Eleanor, for the girl she had been who danced in a blue dress and believed in fairy tales. That girl was gone, and she was not coming back. The third day of the storm dawned cold and still. The wind had finally quieted, though snow continued to fall in soft, persistent flakes. The world beyond Thornfield's windows was unrecognizable, a landscape of white curves and blue shadows. Amelia woke late, having slept poorly. Her dreams had been full of confusion. Eleanor's face and Christopher's hands on piano keys, blood on white sheets, and a blue dress spinning in an endless waltz. She dressed carefully in her plainest grey wool and went downstairs to find her father already in the breakfast room. His Grace has gone to check on the horses, Edmund said, not looking up from his newspaper. He will be cold. Perhaps you should take him tea. Betty can take tea. Betty is busy with the baking. We are running low on bread. Now Edmund did look up, his eyes knowing. Amelia, you have avoided the man for 3 days. You cannot avoid him forever when he is sleeping under our roof. I am not avoiding him. You are, and I understand why. But the storm will end eventually. When it does, you must decide. Decide what? Whether to forgive him, whether to release this anger you have carried like armor for 9 years, whether to allow yourself to feel again. Amelia's throat tightened. It is not that simple. It never is. Edmund folded his newspaper. But Eleanor is dead, my dear, and you are alive. The question is whether you intend to remain so, or simply haunt this house like a ghost. The words struck deep. Amelia opened her mouth to argue, then closed it again, because he was right. She had been a ghost for 9 years, going through motions, fulfilling duties, but never truly living. I do not know how to stop, she whispered. Perhaps, Edmund said gently, you start by taking the Duke his tea. Amelia found Christopher in the stable, brushing down his stallion with careful strokes. He had removed his coat despite the cold, and his shirt clung to his shoulders with dampness. The horse nickered softly under his attention. You will freeze, Amelia said from the doorway. Christopher turned, surprise crossing his face. I did not hear you approach. I brought tea. She held up the small basket Betty had prepared. Father thought you might be cold. Your father is kind. Christopher gave the horse a final pat and crossed to where Amelia stood. Thank you. They moved to a relatively clean corner where hay bales provided seating. Amelia poured tea from the still-warm pot, handed him a cup. Their fingers brushed in the exchange, and she felt the touch like sparks. The storm is easing, Christopher observed, cradling the cup for warmth. Another day, perhaps 2, and the roads will be passable. Yes, you will be glad to see me gone. Amelia did not answer immediately. Would she be glad? Part of her would, the part that had nursed anger and grief for so long. But another part, one she was only beginning to acknowledge, would mourn his departure. I do not know what I feel, she admitted finally. Christopher sipped his tea. That is more honest than most would be. I have never been skilled at deception. No, it was one of the things I admired about you. Still do. He set down his cup. Amelia, about yesterday, what I said, you were honest. We agreed to honesty. Honesty can be cruel. So can silence. Amelia looked at him directly. You told me you cared for me that summer, but you never returned. You never wrote. Was it truly all duty that kept you away, or did you simply stop caring? Christopher flinched. I did not stop caring. Amelia, when I became Duke, I was drowning. William's death, father's grief, the estate debts I discovered, the political obligations. I could barely think, barely breathe, and you were 17, still a child in the eyes of the world. I could not. I thought it better to stay away, to let you grow up without the complication of my attentions. I grew up without you anyway. I know. And by the time I thought to reach out again, you and Eleanor were inseparable. She spoke of you constantly, how brilliant you were, how loyal. And I realized that if I pursued you, I would be stealing my sister's dearest friend, making everything more complicated. So you stayed away for her sake, for everyone's sake, including yours. Christopher's jaw tightened. And then father arranged Eleanor's marriage, and I was too weak to stop it. I told myself I was protecting the estate, the family legacy, but truly, I was protecting myself from his anger, from conflict. I chose the easier path, and Eleanor paid the price. And now you are choosing the easier path again, with Lady Genevieve. Is it easier? I do not think so. He looked at her with such intensity that Amelia had to fight the urge to look away. Every choice I have made in the past 10 years has led me further from what I want, and closer to what is expected. I am tired, Amelia, so tired of duty, of expectation, of— He stopped abruptly, shaking his head. Of what? Amelia pressed. Of pretending I do not feel what I feel. The words came out raw. Of acting as though you do not haunt me. As though I do not think of you when I wake and before I sleep. As though the thought of touching you does not consume me, even though I have no right to it. Amelia's heart stopped. Christopher, I know. I have no right. I am about to marry another woman. I have failed you and Eleanor both. I have no claim to your affection or your forgiveness. He stood abruptly, pacing to the stable door. But you asked for honesty, so there it is. I am in love with you, Amelia Wells. I have been for years, and it changes nothing. The world seemed to tilt. Amelia gripped the hay bale beneath her, fighting for equilibrium. He loved her. Christopher Thornbury loved her. Say something, Christopher said, his back still turned. Tell me I am a fool. Tell me to leave. Tell me— I do not know what to say. Amelia's voice came out barely above a whisper. So you have just upended everything I thought I understood. I am sorry. Stop apologizing. She stood, her legs shaky but holding. If we are being honest, then let me be honest too. I have hated you for 9 years. Hated you for abandoning Eleanor, for abandoning me, for choosing duty over love again and again. She crossed to stand before him. But I have also never stopped loving you. Not truly. And I hate myself for that even more than I hate you. Christopher turned slowly, his eyes wide. Amelia, do not touch me, she said sharply, seeing him start to reach for her. If you touch me, I will shatter, and I cannot afford to shatter. Not again. They stood inches apart, both trembling. The air between them crackled with tension, with years of suppressed longing and grief and anger all tangled together. What do we do? Christopher asked hoarsely. I do not know. I am supposed to marry her. The announcement is set for Christmas Eve. The contracts are signed. My cousins are already contesting my right to Thornbury. If I break the engagement, they will use it as evidence of instability. I could lose everything. Then you must marry her. I cannot, not now, not knowing— Knowing what? That I love you. We have always known, Christopher. We simply refuse to acknowledge it. Amelia felt tears threatening and fought them back. But love is not enough. It was not enough to save Eleanor. It will not be enough to save you from duty. What if I do not want to be saved? What if I want to choose differently this time? You cannot— Amelia's voice broke. Your position, your estate, your family name, they all depend on you making the right choice, the dutiful choice. And we both know that is not me. Christopher reached out and, despite her warning, cupped her face gently. What if you are the right choice? What if every other choice I have made has been wrong precisely because it was not you? His thumb stroked her cheek, and Amelia felt herself leaning into the touch despite herself. This was dangerous. This was impossible. This was— His lips brushed hers, tentative and questioning. Amelia made a small sound, protest or surrender, she could not tell, and then she was kissing him back, her hands fisting in his shirt, 9 years of longing and grief and anger pouring into the desperate press of mouths. Christopher groaned and pulled her closer, one hand tangling in her hair, the other firm at the small of her back. The kiss deepened, grew hungry. Amelia felt herself drowning in sensation, the taste of him, tea and something darker, the solid warmth of his body, the way he held her as though she were precious and fragile and necessary all at once. When they finally broke apart, both gasping, Amelia felt tears streaming down her face. "I cannot do this," she whispered. "Christopher, I cannot." "I know." He rested his forehead against hers. "I know, but I cannot let you go, not again. Not without—" "Without what?" "Without at least trying to find a way." Amelia pulled back, putting space between them. "There is no way. You are a duke. I am a country gentleman's daughter with no fortune, and a reputation already compromised by this storm. If you break your engagement for me, you will be ruined. Both of us will." "I do not care." "But I do." Amelia wiped her eyes roughly. "I will not be the reason you lose Thornbury. I will not be another person you sacrifice your duties for, only to regret it later. I will not be—" "You would never be a regret. You do not know that. You cannot know that." She backed toward the stable door. "The storm will end, Christopher. You will go back to your castle and your suitable bride, and I will remain here. We will both do our duty, as we always have. Amelia, please." "No." She held up a hand, stopping him. "This, whatever this is, it ends here. It has to, for both our sakes." She fled before he could respond, running through the snow back to the house. Her lips still burned from his kiss, her heart still raced from his touch, but she meant what she said. This had to end, because if it did not, they would both be destroyed. That night, Amelia could not sleep. She lay in her narrow bed, staring at the ceiling, reliving every moment in the stable. "I am in love with you, Amelia Wells." The words echoed in her mind like bells. Christopher loved her, had always loved her, and she had kissed him as though the world were ending, as though duty and propriety and Lady Genevieve did not exist. But they did exist, and in the morning they would exist even more heavily than before. Around midnight, Amelia gave up on sleep. She wrapped a shawl around her nightgown and crept downstairs, thinking to make herself some warm milk in the kitchen. She found Christopher in the drawing room, standing beside the uncovered piano. "I could not sleep either," he said without turning. Amelia should have retreated, should have maintained the distance she had insisted upon, but instead she found herself moving into the room. "What are you doing?" "Remembering." He touched the keys lightly. "This piano was where Eleanor first made me teach you properly. You were terrified, fumbling every note, but she insisted you had talent. I did not have talent. You had passion. That is rarer than talent." Christopher finally looked at her, and the rawness in his expression made her chest ache. "Will you play for me? Just once?" "I told you. I know what you told me. But curse, Amelia, if this is all we have, this stolen time during a storm, then please, let me hear you play once more before I go back to being the Duke, and you go back to being the grieving friend who never touches the keys." It was emotional manipulation, and they both knew it. But Amelia found herself sitting at the bench anyway, her fingers hovering over the keys. "What should I play?" "Whatever you wish." Amelia closed her eyes and let her fingers find the notes. The piece that emerged was the waltz Eleanor had loved, the same one Christopher had played days before. But where his version had been controlled, perfect, hers was raw with emotion. She poured into it everything she could not say aloud. The love, the loss, the longing, the grief. The piano was out of tune, her fingers unpracticed, but the music swelled through the room anyway, filling the silence with bittersweet beauty. When the final note faded, Amelia kept her eyes closed, unable to face Christopher's reaction. She felt him move closer, felt his hands on her shoulders. "That was extraordinary," he whispered. "It was Eleanor's favorite." "I know." Christopher's hands slid down her arms, and then he was pulling her up from the bench, turning her to face him. "Amelia, do not say it. I must. I must say it at least once, where there is no taking it back. No pretending later that this storm was a dream." His hands cupped her face with infinite gentleness. "I love you. I choose you. Duty be damned. Estate be damned. Scandal be damned. I would rather be ruined with you than comfortable without you." "Christopher, you cannot mean—" "I have never meant anything more." He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, the corners of her mouth. "Say you feel the same. Say I am not alone in this madness." Amelia's resistance crumbled like snow in sunlight. "You are not alone. Then run away with me. The words hung in the air, impossible and thrilling. What? Run away with me? Tonight. We can be in Scotland by tomorrow evening, married before anyone knows we are gone. Christopher's eyes blazed with sudden hope. Let them have Thornbury. Let my cousins fight over it. We will go somewhere no one knows us. Start fresh. I have money of my own. We would not be destitute. We could... No. The word cost Amelia everything, but she forced it out. No, Christopher. His face fell. Why not? Because I will not let you throw everything away for me. Thornbury is not just an estate. It is hundreds of people who depend on you, servants, tenants, villagers. It is centuries of history. It is your family's legacy, Eleanor's legacy. You cannot abandon it for this, for love, for passion that will fade when reality sets in, when you realize what you have given up, when you grow to resent me for it. I would never. You would, eventually, and I would rather have you hate me from a distance than watch that love turn sour. Amelia pulled away from him, her heart breaking with each inch of space. Go back to Thornbury, Christopher. Marry Lady Genevieve. Produce your heirs. Do your duty. And let me go. I cannot. You must. For both of us. Christopher stared at her, and she watched the hope in his eyes gutter and die like a candle flame. Is this truly what you want? No. Amelia forced the words past the lump in her throat. But it is what must be. You know it as well as I do. For a long moment, Christopher said nothing. Then he stepped forward and kissed her one last time. A kiss of goodbye, of regret, of all the things they would never have. When he pulled back, his cheeks were wet. I will love you until I die, Amelia Wells. Even if I marry another, even if I never see you again, you will always be the one I should have chosen. And you will always be the one I loved too much to keep. Christopher nodded slowly. Then he walked away, his footsteps echoing up the stairs. Amelia sank onto the piano bench and let herself weep. Great, wrenching sobs that shook her whole body. She cried for Christopher, for Eleanor, for the girl in the blue dress who believed in fairy tales, for the woman she had become, who knew better than to believe in anything at all. Outside, the storm had finally ended. The world lay silent, and white, and new. But inside Amelia's heart, winter had only just begun. Christopher left the morning after the storm broke. The roads were barely passable, but he was desperate to escape Thornfield before he did something unforgivable, like beg Amelia to reconsider, like abandon duty one final time, like choose love over everything else. Edmund Wells saw him off with a knowing look. Take care, Your Grace. Thank you for your hospitality, sir. It was not hospitality, it was necessity. Edmund lowered his voice. But perhaps some good came of it anyway. Christopher glanced toward the house, hoping for one last glimpse of Amelia, but the windows remained empty. She had said her goodbye in the drawing room. There would be no other. The ride back to Thornbury was brutal. The snow had drifted high in places, forcing Christopher to dismount and lead his horse through the worst sections. By the time the castle came into view, its grey towers rising against a pale blue sky, he was exhausted, frozen, and utterly miserable. Lady Genevieve Rothmore waited for him in the great hall, her elegant features arranged in an expression of carefully calibrated concern. Christopher, thank heavens! We have been so worried. She glided forward, all grace and propriety. That when you did not return from your ride, and the storm came so quickly. I took shelter at a nearby manor. I apologize for causing alarm. Of course, of course. The important thing is that you are safe. Genevieve's cool fingers touched his arm. You look exhausted. I will have them draw you a bath and prepare something warm. She was perfect, efficient, elegant, appropriate in every way. She would make an excellent duchess, managing the household and society obligations with practiced ease, and Christopher felt nothing for her, not even mild affection. Thank you, Lady Genevieve. Please, Christopher, we are to be married. Surely you can call me Genevieve. Genevieve, he repeated, the name feeling wrong in his mouth. Not Amelia. Never Amelia again. Over the following days, preparations for the Christmas ball intensified. Servants polished silver, arranged flowers, prepared guest rooms. The castle filled with the scent of pine and cinnamon. Lady Genevieve moved through it all like a general commanding troops, making decisions with calm authority. She will be an asset, Christopher's steward observed one afternoon. The estate has lacked a lady's touch these many years. Yes, Christopher thought dully, an asset, a suitable choice, everything he was supposed to want. He went through the motions, approved menus, greeted arriving guests, stood beside Genevieve and accepted congratulations on their impending engagement, which would be formally announced on Christmas Eve, as planned. But at night, alone in his rooms, Christopher found himself at the piano in his private sitting room, playing the waltz Amelia had played, over and over, trying to recapture the emotion she had poured into it. He never came close. 5 days before Christmas, his secretary brought an unexpected letter. "From London, Your Grace, the law firm of Blackwood and Smythe." Christopher opened it with little interest, probably some document requiring his signature, but the contents made him sit up sharply. "Your Grace, we write to inform you that the case brought by your cousins, the Blackwood Winters family, challenging your right to the Thornbury title and estate, has been dismissed. The court found their claims without merit. Your position is secure. Furthermore, we have completed our investigation into the matter you requested regarding historical estate debts." Christopher read the rest with growing astonishment. Then he read it again. The cousin's challenge was over. He had won, which meant he no longer needed the marriage to Lady Genevieve to shore up his position. The legal necessity that had driven him toward this engagement had evaporated. He was free. The thought made Christopher laugh, a slightly hysterical sound that brought his valet hurrying to check on him. "Your Grace, are you well?" "I do not know," Christopher said honestly. "I think I might be, for the first time in a very long while." But freedom meant choice, and choice meant deciding what to do with it. Christopher looked out his window, toward the south where Thornfield Manor lay hidden beyond the rolling hills. "Let me go," Amelia had said. But what if he did not want to? What if, just this once, he chose to fight for what he wanted instead of accepting what was expected? The question was whether Amelia would forgive him for refusing to give up. Amelia spent the days following Christopher's departure in a grey haze. She moved through her duties mechanically, managing the household, visiting the sick, helping her father with his correspondence. But nothing felt real. Nothing touched the numbness that had settled over her heart. She did not cry. Crying implied some hope of relief, and she felt none. "You should go to the ball," her father said on December 20th. Amelia looked up from the accounts she was reviewing. "What?" "The Duke's ball." "You should go." "Father, we discussed this." "We did. Before he stayed here. Before whatever happened between you." Edmund fixed her with a level stare. "I am old, Amelia, not blind. Something changed during that storm." "Nothing changed. Everything remains exactly as it was." "Then why do you look as though your heart has been torn out?" Amelia had no answer for that. Edmund sighed. "My dear girl, you have been punishing yourself for 9 years. First for Eleanor's death, though it was not your fault. Now for loving Christopher Thornbury, though that is not your fault either. When will you allow yourself to simply live? I am living. You are existing. There is a difference." He reached across the desk to take her hand. "Your mother, God rest her soul, would be heartbroken to see you this way. She wanted joy for you, love, a full life. Mother died when I was 8. She barely knew me. She knew you well enough to see your nature. You love fiercely, Amelia, completely. It is your greatest strength and your deepest vulnerability, but you cannot love if you have walled yourself away from everyone who might hurt you. I am protecting myself. You are dying slowly." Edmund's grip tightened. "Go to the ball. See him one last time. Say whatever needs to be said. And then, if you must, close that door forever. But close it consciously, not simply because you are afraid to do otherwise." Amelia pulled her hand away. "It does not matter if I go. He is announcing his engagement that night. Then witness it. Face it directly. Stop hiding." "I am not hiding. You have been hiding since Eleanor died. From life, from feeling, from the possibility of happiness." Edmund's voice gentled. "But Eleanor would want you happy, dearest. You know she would." That night, Amelia dreamed of Eleanor again, but this time her friend was not dying. She was standing in the music room at Thornbury, wearing the white dress she had been married in. "You are being a coward," Dream Eleanor said. "I am being practical. You are being frightened. There is a difference." Eleanor drifted closer, her face sad. "I died afraid, Amelia. Afraid I had made wrong choices. Afraid I had been too weak. I do not want that for you. I am not you. No, you are braver than I ever was. So why are you letting fear win? Because I cannot bear to lose anyone else." The words burst from her, raw and true. And in the dream, Eleanor smiled. "Oh, darling, that is exactly why you must risk it. Because a life without love is just a slow death, and I would hate for my death to have caused yours. Amelia woke with tears on her cheeks and a strange lightness in her chest. Perhaps her father was right. Perhaps she had been hiding. Perhaps it was time to stop. On December 23rd, Amelia went to her wardrobe and pulled out a dress she had not worn in 9 years. Blue silk, slightly outdated now, but still beautiful. The dress she had worn the night she danced with Christopher and believed, briefly in fairy tales. Miss Amelia. Betty appeared in the doorway, eyes wide. "Are you—" "I am going to the ball," Amelia said, and saying it aloud made it real, made it a choice rather than a surrender. "I am going to face whatever comes, and then I will decide what happens next." Betty grinned. "About time, if you do not mind me saying, miss." Amelia smiled, the first genuine smile she had managed in days. "I do not mind at all." Christmas Eve dawned cold and clear. Thornbury Castle blazed with light, every window glowing in the early winter darkness. Carriages lined the drive, disgorging elegantly dressed guests who exclaimed over the decorations and the magnificent tree in the great hall. Christopher greeted them all with perfect courtesy, Genevieve at his side. She wore ice blue silk and diamonds, every inch the future Duchess. Guests congratulated them, speculated about the wedding date, admired them as a handsome couple. Christopher felt like he was watching someone else's life. "You seem distracted," Genevieve observed during a brief lull. "Are you well?" "Perfectly well. You do not seem it. You have been distant since your return from that storm." Her eyes sharpened slightly. "Where exactly did you take shelter? A local manor? Whose? Does it matter?" Genevieve's lips thinned. "I suppose not, though one does wonder why you have been so secretive about it." Before Christopher could respond, the butler announced another arrival. Christopher turned automatically to greet whoever it was, and froze. Amelia stood in the entrance hall, wearing a blue dress that made his heart stop. Her dark hair was arranged in an elegant style he had never seen before. She held herself with careful poise, but her eyes, her grey eyes, found his immediately, and in them he saw everything. Fear and courage and determination and love, all tangled together. She had come— "Christopher?" Genevieve's voice seemed to come from very far away. "Who is that?" "Miss Amelia Wells," Christopher heard himself say, "and her father, Mr. Edmund Wells." Edmund stood beside his daughter, leaning slightly on his walking stick but looking dignified in his evening clothes. He nodded to Christopher with something that might have been approval. Amelia moved forward slowly, and the crowd seemed to part for her. She stopped before Christopher and executed a perfect curtsy. "Your Grace, thank you for your kind invitation." Her voice was steady, but Christopher could see her hands trembling slightly. She had come despite her fear, had walked into the heart of his world to face— what? Him, Genevieve, the announcement of his engagement. "Miss Wells." He bowed, achingly formal. "Welcome to Thornbury Castle. I am honored by your presence." Their eyes held for a long moment. Christopher wanted desperately to say more, to pull her aside, to demand why she had come, but protocol held him frozen. It was Genevieve who broke the tableau. "Miss Wells, I do not believe we have been introduced." "No, my lady, we have not." Amelia turned to face her rival with admirable composure. "I knew the Duke's late sister, Lady Eleanor. We were childhood friends." "Ah," Genevieve's expression cooled further. "How sad. She died quite young, I understand." "She did. And you have been in mourning all this time. How devoted." The slight emphasis on devoted made Christopher's jaw tighten, but Amelia only smiled, a small sad smile that held no malice. "She was my dearest friend. I imagine I will mourn her all my life." "How melancholy." Genevieve threaded her arm through Christopher's possessively. "But tonight is for celebration, not grief. Christopher and I have such wonderful news to share." The reminder hit like a physical blow. In less than an hour, Christopher would be expected to announce his engagement, to stand before all these people and declare his intention to marry Genevieve, unless he chose differently. "Now, if you will excuse me," Christopher said abruptly, I need a moment." He extracted himself from Genevieve's grasp and strode from the hall, leaving behind a murmur of confused whispers. Christopher found himself in Eleanor's music room, the one he had kept locked since her death. But sometime in the past days, someone had opened it. The covers had been removed from the furniture. The piano gleamed softly in the candlelight from the hall. He sat at the bench, his hands shaking, and tried to think. Amelia had come. Against all expectation, against her own protestations, she had come to the ball, which meant, what? That she had changed her mind, that she wanted to say goodbye properly, that she was torturing herself watching him announce his engagement. Footsteps sounded in the doorway. Christopher looked up, hoping desperately, but it was Genevieve, not Amelia. Christopher. What is going on? I do not know what you mean. That woman, Miss Wells. You looked at her as though... Genevieve stopped. You have feelings for her. It was not a question. Christopher saw no point in denying it. Yes. Genevieve's face went very still. I see. And does she return them? I believe so. But it does not matter. It matters entirely. For the first time, Genevieve's perfect composure cracked. Christopher, I agreed to this match because I thought we understood each other. A partnership of equals. A sensible arrangement. But I will not be humiliated by a husband pining for someone else. I never meant to humiliate you. Then what did you mean to do? Announce our engagement while longing for another woman. Marry me while your heart belongs elsewhere. Genevieve's voice rose slightly. I deserve better than that. Whatever my feelings or lack thereof for you, I deserve respect. She was right. Of course she was right. I am sorry, Christopher said quietly. You do deserve better. You deserve a husband who will value you as you deserve, and I cannot be that man. Genevieve stared at him. Are you ending our engagement? Before it has even been announced? Would that be so terrible? It would be the scandal of the season. But beneath the outrage, Christopher heard something else. Relief. Genevieve, be honest with me. Just this once. Do you actually want to marry me? Or is this merely the most advantageous match available? She opened her mouth, then closed it. Then, slowly, she smiled, a genuine smile, not her usual practiced expression. You truly want to know? I do. Then no, I do not want to marry you. You are far too brooding and melancholy for my taste. I much prefer Lord Ashton, who has been courting me quietly for months, but lacks the title to satisfy my family's expectations. She tilted her head. But if our engagement ends by your choice rather than mine, I can accept Lord Ashton's proposal without losing face. In fact, I could claim you broke my heart, which would make me quite interesting at parties. Christopher laughed despite himself. You are mercenary. I am practical, as are you, usually, which is why this sudden attack of romantic feeling is so uncharacteristic. Genevieve's expression softened slightly. But Eleanor was my friend too. Christopher, before she married, she wrote to me sometimes, and she would want you happy, even if it means choosing the unsuitable woman. Amelia is not unsuitable. She is to society, but since when do you care about society? Genevieve moved toward the door, then paused. The announcement is in 20 minutes. You should decide quickly whether you're going to make it, and if not, what you intend to say instead. She left in a rustle of silk, leaving Christopher alone with his thoughts. 20 minutes. 20 minutes to decide whether to do his duty or follow his heart. Christopher looked at Eleanor's piano, remembering his sister's laugh, her joy in music, her fierce belief that love mattered more than propriety. Do not make my mistakes, she seemed to whisper across the years. Do not let fear choose for you. Christopher stood and walked out of the music room with purpose. He knew what he had to do. Amelia stood on the terrace, unable to bear the crowded ballroom any longer. She had come to the castle with such determination, but now that she was here, she did not know what she had hoped to accomplish. Christopher was about to announce his engagement. She would witness it as her father had suggested, face it directly. And then what? Return to Thornfield and live the rest of her life alone. You are far from the festivities. Amelia turned to find Genevieve Rothmore standing in the terrace doorway, silhouetted by the light from within. I needed air, my lady. As do I. The ballroom is stifling. Genevieve moved to stand beside her at the railing. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then, he loves you, you know. Amelia's breath caught. I do not. Please. I am neither blind nor stupid. He looks at you the way poets describe in their more maudlin verses, like you are water and he is dying of thirst. Genevieve's voice was dry but not unkind. It is really quite inconvenient. I am sorry. I never meant to steal him. I know. You cannot steal something that was never truly held. Genevieve sighed. I do not love Christopher. He does not love me. We would have made a perfectly adequate marriage. But adequate is a rather dismal goal for one's life. Do you not think? Why are you telling me this? Because in approximately 15 minutes, Christopher must either announce our engagement or explain to a room full of aristocrats why he is not doing so. And I rather think he needs a reason to choose the latter. Genevieve turned to face Amelia directly. So I will ask you plainly, do you love him enough to weather the scandal? To be called a fortune hunter and a social climber? To watch society cut you while you stand beside him? Amelia's hands tightened on the railing. Yes. Even if it means he might lose his position. His cousins are only waiting for an excuse to contest his right to Thornbury. The case was dismissed. I read about it in the newspaper last week. Genevieve's eyebrows rose. So you have been following his affairs? How interesting. I am not trying to trap him. I told him to marry you, to do his duty. I only came tonight to... Amelia stopped. Why had she come? To say goodbye properly, I suppose. How very noble and foolish. Genevieve's tone was almost fond. Eleanor wrote to me about you, you know, before she died. She said you were the most loyal friend she had ever known, that she hoped Christopher would see you someday, as you deserve to be seen. Amelia's eyes burned with sudden tears. She said that. She did. And I think she would be quite angry to see you throwing away your chance at happiness out of some misguided sense of propriety. Genevieve touched Amelia's arm lightly. Go to him, before he makes the safe choice again. But you will survive quite well without him. In fact, I have another prospect already in mind. Lord Ashton has been very attentive, and he actually makes me laugh. Genevieve smiled. So you see, you would be doing me a favor. I am simply too proud to be the one to end it. Before Amelia could respond, the terrace doors opened again, and Christopher himself appeared. I thought I might find you here, he said, looking directly at Amelia. Genevieve laughed softly. And that is my cue to depart. Do try not to cause too much scandal, dears, or if you must, at least make it worth the gossip. She swept past Christopher, leaving them alone. Christopher moved to stand before Amelia, close enough that she could see the rapid rise and fall of his chest, the tension in his jaw. You came, he said simply. I did. Why? Amelia took a shaky breath. Because my father is right. I have been hiding. From life, from feeling, from the possibility of pain. But Eleanor died in pain anyway. And I have been dying slowly in safety. And she swallowed hard. And I would rather risk pain with you than die safely alone. Christopher's eyes closed briefly, as if in prayer. When they opened again, they blazed with hope. Tell me you mean it. Tell me you are not here just to say goodbye. I mean it. Amelia stepped closer, her heart pounding. I love you, Christopher Thornbury. I have loved you since I was 17 years old, and I will love you until I die, whether you marry me or Lady Genevieve or no one at all. But I am here because I want to fight for you, for us, for the possibility that love can be stronger than duty. Amelia, I know what it will cost. I know society will condemn us. I know your family will object, but I am tired of being afraid, tired of protecting myself from hurt by refusing to feel anything at all. So if you want me, truly want me, then I am here. And I am not running anymore. Christopher reached for her, his hands cupping her face with infinite tenderness. I want you. God help me. I want you more than anything I have ever wanted in my life, but I need you to understand what that means. The scandal, the whispers, the social isolation. Are you truly prepared for that? I am prepared for anything, as long as I am with you. Then marry me. The words came out fierce, urgent. Marry me now, tonight. To hell with announcements and society and appropriate waiting periods. I have a license. I can summon the vicar. We can be married before midnight. Amelia laughed, giddy with sudden joy. That is insane. Completely. But I have spent 10 years being sane and sensible, and it has brought me nothing but misery. I want to be insane with you. What about the ball? The guests can be told that plans have changed. Christopher pulled her closer, his forehead resting against hers. What do you say, Amelia Wells? Will you be my Duchess, my partner, my love? Yes. The word came out breathless. Yes to all of it. Christopher kissed her then, not the desperate, grief-stricken kiss in the stable, but something deeper, a kiss of promise and commitment and joy, a kiss that tasted of future rather than past. When they finally broke apart, Amelia was laughing and crying simultaneously. We are going to cause the most tremendous scandal. The best kind. Christopher took her hand, threading his fingers through hers. Shall we go inform our guests? Should we not prepare them somehow? No. Let them be shocked. Let them gossip. Let them disapprove. We will be too busy being happy to care. Hand in hand, they walked back into the ballroom. The orchestra was playing a waltz, the same waltz Eleanor had loved, the one Amelia had played in Thornfield's drawing room. Christopher pulled her into his arms and led her onto the dance floor. The other dancers slowed, then stopped, as they realized what they were witnessing. The Duke of Thornbury, who was supposed to announce his engagement to Lady Genevieve, dancing instead with an unknown woman in an outdated blue dress. The whispers started immediately. Shocked, scandalized, fascinated. Christopher ignored them all. He held Amelia close and waltzed her around the ballroom as though they were the only two people in the world. "I should announce this properly," he murmured against her hair. "Should you? It is only fair. These people came expecting news. Then give them news they will never forget." Christopher grinned, the first truly carefree expression Amelia had ever seen on his face. He raised his hand, signaling the orchestra to stop. In the sudden silence, every eye turned to them. "My lords and ladies," Christopher said, his voice carrying clearly through the room, "I apologize for the confusion. There has been a change of plans this evening." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Genevieve, standing near the refreshment table, looked supremely unbothered. "I was meant to announce my engagement to Lady Genevieve Rothmore. However, it has become clear to both of us that such a match, while suitable, would be insufficient." Christopher pulled Amelia tighter against his side. "Instead, I am pleased to announce my engagement to Miss Amelia Wells, who has done me the extraordinary honor of accepting my hand." The silence that followed was profound. Then Lady Hartwell fainted dramatically. The Earl of something or other began spluttering, and a dozen conversations exploded simultaneously. But Amelia heard none of it. She was looking at Christopher, at the joy and freedom in his eyes, and thinking that scandal had never looked so beautiful. "Shall we scandalize them further?" Christopher whispered. "How?" He kissed her again, right there in front of everyone. A proper, passionate kiss that left no doubt about his feelings or intentions. When they finally broke apart, half the room was cheering, and the other half was fainting. "Well," Amelia said, slightly breathless, "I believe we have achieved scandal." "Magnificently so." Christopher took her hand. "Come, let us find the vicar and make this official before anyone tries to talk sense into us." They left the ballroom hand in hand, ignoring the chaos behind them, walking toward a future that promised no ease or social acceptance, but offered something far more valuable: love, freely chosen and fiercely held. Christmas morning. 1 year later, Amelia woke in the Duchess's chambers of Thornbury Castle, chambers she still was not entirely used to find snow falling gently outside the windows, and her husband's arm wrapped around her waist. "Happy Christmas," Christopher murmured against her neck. "Happy Christmas." She turned in his arms to face him. "Though it seems rather late for sleeping, the household will be expecting us. Let them wait." "I am far too comfortable." Amelia laughed. This Christopher, relaxed, playful, happy, still surprised her sometimes. The stern, duty-bound Duke had not disappeared entirely, but he appeared far less often now. They had married that very night, with a hastily summoned vicar and her father standing as witness. The scandal had indeed been magnificent. Several families cut them immediately. Christopher's more distant relatives contested the marriage. Society matrons declared Amelia a scheming fortune hunter, but slowly, grudgingly, opinion had shifted. Perhaps because Christopher so clearly adored his unsuitable wife, perhaps because Amelia proved herself a capable duchess, managing the estate and tenants with quiet efficiency, or perhaps because the Prince of Wales himself attended their first dinner party and declared them refreshingly authentic. Whatever the reason, by the time a year had passed, most of society had accepted them, and those who had not, Christopher and Amelia did not particularly care. "I have something for you," Christopher said, extracting himself reluctantly from the warm bed. He returned with a small, wrapped package. Amelia opened it carefully to find a leather-bound journal, but when she opened it, she saw it was not blank. The pages were filled with musical notation, compositions in Eleanor's hand. "Her private works," Christopher explained. "I found them in the music room last month. Pieces she never showed anyone. I thought you might like to have them, to play them, so that her music lives again." Amelia's eyes filled with tears. "Christopher, this is—" "Thank you." She traced her fingers over Eleanor's careful notations, remembering her friend's hands on these same keys. her laughter filling the music room. Eleanor had been gone for 9 years, but in this moment, she felt present, blessing them, encouraging them, living on through the beauty she had created. A knock sounded at the door. "Your Graces," Betty's voice came through. "The tenants are gathering for the Christmas celebration. We will be down shortly," Christopher called back. "We should dress," Amelia said, though she made no move to leave Christopher's embrace. "The guests will be impatient." "Let them be impatient a few moments longer." Christopher kissed her softly. "I want to savor this. Our second Christmas together. The first of many, God willing." "Many, many," Amelia agreed. They dressed together, helping each other with buttons and laces in the easy intimacy of marriage. Amelia wore green velvet that brought out the color of her eyes. Christopher wore his formal attire, but left off the ducal regalia, the elaborate chains and medals that marked his rank. They were simply Christopher and Amelia today, celebrating with family and tenants who had become friends. Downstairs, the great hall blazed with light and warmth. An enormous tree stood in the corner, decorated with ornaments collected over generations, some dating back a century, others added just this year. The scent of pine and cinnamon filled the air. Children laughed and chased each other around the edges of the room, while their parents greeted the Duke and Duchess with genuine affection rather than mere deference. This was what Eleanor's mother had envisioned. Christopher had told her, a Christmas where barriers dissolved, where the castle opened its doors to all who called Thornbury home. The tradition had died with her, but Christopher and Amelia had revived it, and it had become Amelia's favorite day of the year. The day passed in a blur of joy, gifts exchanged, simple, heartfelt things rather than expensive trinkets. Carols sung in voices that ranged from pure to enthusiastic, but off-key. An enormous feast served to everyone, noble and common alike, with no separation of tables or treatment. As evening fell and the guests gradually departed, their arms laden with leftover food and small gifts, Amelia found herself drawn to the music room. She stood in the doorway, holding Eleanor's journal of compositions. Christopher appeared behind her, his hands settling on her shoulders. "Will you play something of hers?" "I would like that." They entered together. Christopher lit candles around the room, Eleanor's room, which no longer felt like a shrine to the dead, but rather a living memorial to someone deeply loved. Amelia sat at the piano and opened the journal to the first piece. The notation was complex, sophisticated, more advanced than she had realized Eleanor's skills had been. She placed her fingers on the keys and began to play. The music that emerged was beautiful and melancholy, full of yearning and hope intertwined. It sounded like Eleanor, her spirit, her dreams, all the things she had wanted to say but never had the chance to fully express. When the final notes faded, Amelia found tears on her cheeks. But they were not bitter tears. They were the tears of someone who had finally made peace with grief, who could remember without drowning in the remembering. "First, she would be happy for us," Christopher said quietly, standing beside the piano. "I know she would." "Yes, she would." Amelia closed the journal carefully. She always wanted everyone to be happy, even when she could not be. Christopher pulled her to her feet and into his arms. "I have been thinking about what we might do with this room, with her music. Oh, I want to open it, to share it. Perhaps host concerts here. Let young musicians perform. Let Eleanor's compositions be heard alongside theirs. Give this room purpose again, life again." He paused. "What do you think?" Amelia smiled through her tears. "I think Eleanor would love that. I think it is exactly what she would have wanted. Then we shall do it, starting next Christmas. An annual concert in her memory. Open to anyone with talent, regardless of their station." "Another scandal brewing," Amelia teased gently. "I am growing rather fond of scandal." Christopher's eyes gleamed with the mischief she had come to adore, especially when it is scandal in service of something good. They stood together in Eleanor's music room, planning this new venture that would honor her memory while creating something entirely new. Outside, snow continued to fall on the grounds of Thornbury Castle, covering everything in white, clean and new and full of possibility. Inside, two people who had thought themselves beyond joy discovered that happiness, when finally grasped, was sweeter than any duty, richer than any obligation, and worth every scandal along the way. Above them, in the portrait gallery, a painting of Eleanor smiled down as if in blessing. "Choose love," she seemed to whisper across the years. "Always choose love," and they had, and they would. Every day for the rest of their lives. "Thank you so much for staying with us until the very end. If this story moved you, please consider subscribing to our channel, leaving a like, sharing it with friends, and writing a comment below. Your support means everything to us and keeps us inspired to tell more stories filled with love, resilience, redemption, and second chances. At the end of this video, you'll find another unforgettable romance from our collection. Click and discover where the next story will take you. With all our appreciation, the Empire of Heart Stories team